Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's understood the government will unveil details about a special scheme to import workers tomorrow at the earliest. Under the scheme, some 10,000 construction workers will reportedly be imported, while transport sector vacancies will be filled in by 8,000 non-local workers. Since mid-2018, Hong Kong's labor force has shrunk from around 4 million to the latest 3.77 million people, down by some 200,000 workers. To address the manpower crunch across various industries, Chief Executive John Lee revealed in April the government's consideration to import labor for the construction industry. Reportedly, details will be hammered out on Tuesday at the earliest. The construction sector will import at least 10,000 workers. Some 8,000 non-locals will fill in transport-related vacancies. They include minibus and coach drivers, as well as the frontline staff at Hong Kong International Airport. No plans yet for importing taxi drivers. The union representative of airport staff hopes the government will import labor with restraint to minimize the impacts on local workers' livelihood, especially when their wages have taken a big hit during the pandemic.
Some of our laborers is decreased their salary more than 50%. Now, if government let the labor go into Hong Kong market, the salary may not increase much as they want.
He said the government can first consider importing workers for jobs grappling with more strained staffing, including airline food catering and boarding services. Welcoming the government's move is Eddie Lam, president of the Hong Kong Construction Association.
原則上咧，我哋同意嘅。
He estimates there will be a shortfall of 40,000 workers in 2027, and the migrant workers could relieve the situation. He also urges the government to offer support regarding the accommodation of non-local labor, such as the provisions of dormitories.
有一個人手比例嘅要求啦。
Meanwhile, lawmaker Lam Chung-sing from the Federation of Hong Kong and Labor Unions worried about the new program's lack of gatekeeping on non-local hires. This, as the new scheme, unlike previous ones, could bypass the labor representatives at the Labor Advisory Board without the need to seek approval in a case-by-case scrutiny. He also hopes the government will put in place a staff ratio between local and non-local workers for clearer guidelines. Police revealed more details today on last Thursday's knifing case in Ngau Chi Wan. Police arrested a 27-year-old suspect who is believed to have slashed a woman because of personal grudges. The man was apprehended in Sham Shui Po yesterday. Police investigations show the Vietnamese suspect bought the cleaver knife an hour before the attack and allegedly waited near Choi Hong MTR station for the victim to finish work. The 43-year-old woman who was injured is the manager of a vegetable stall where the suspect used to work. The suspect was earlier fired by the greengrocer. Police said the suspect has no history of mental illness. A woman accused of smothering her 3 daughters to death in Sham Shui Po appeared in court today. The case has been adjourned until the 26th of this month, pending a psychiatric report. The 29-year-old woman of Indian descent was taken by police to the Kowloon City Magistrates Court this afternoon to face 3 counts of murder. The woman was originally set to appear in court last Wednesday, but failed to attend the hearing as she was undergoing treatment at Castle Peak Hospital. The suspect in the police shooting case on Princess Margaret Road last Saturday appeared in court today. Earlier, the police escorted the 25-year-old male suspect to the Kowloon City Magistracy. He faces several charges including drug trafficking, dangerous driving, and driving without a license. The case has been adjourned until the 7th of August. The suspect was denied bail. The incident occurred last Saturday when authorities received a report about a private car suspected of carrying a fake license plate. Police intercepted the vehicle outside the Hung Hom police station when the suspected vehicle suddenly reversed and crashed into another vehicle before ramming into one of the pursuing police cars. 2 officers opened fire at the vehicle after several failed warnings and later found suspected cocaine inside the car. And the High Court has adjourned the hearing over the government's request to ban a protest song until June 21st. That's to allow time for the Department of Justice to revise part of the documents to be submitted for the hearing. Last week, the Department of Justice filed an unprecedented legal bid for injunctions against the tune Glory to Hong Kong. The ban intends to cover the dissemination by means of broadcasting, performing, printing, publishing, selling, or reproducing in any way. The proposed ban targets anyone who intends to commit a secessionist or seditious act. According to a report from Kyodo News today, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, has begun trial operation of a facility that discharges treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Once filled with seawater, the tunnel will guide treated water from the plant to a point about 1 kilometer offshore. TEPCO said the tunnel will be filled with some 6,000 tons of seawater by around noon on Tuesday. The water release system is almost completed except for a reservoir that will store treated water before its release. The utility plans to complete all construction work by the end of this month. Residents of Japan and the international community have long expressed opposition and concerns over the plan to discharge radiation-contaminated water to the Pacific. Critics argue the process will damage the marine ecosystem and endanger human health. The most active volcano in the Philippines was gently spewing lava down its slopes today, leading to fears of a wider evacuation of surrounding areas. Over 12,000 people have already moved from farming communities within a 6-kilometer radius of the Mayon Volcano, but thousands more remain in the permanent danger zone below Mayon. The volcano began erupting Sunday night. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology said, should the volcano eruption turn more violent, people will have to move to emergency shelters. Mayon's last big eruption was in 2018. Still ahead. A sector of a major highway collapses in Philadelphia. Chinese university researchers discover a new form of therapy to treat lung cancer. And devil ducks again off the central harbor front. Welcome back. A section of an interstate highway collapsed in Philadelphia after a tanker carrying gasoline caught fire underneath an overpass. No deaths or injuries were reported, but the collapse will have an impact on the region, as I-95 sits at a dense northeast section of the city. Matthew Bray with more.
An elevated section of northbound Interstate 95 collapsed early Sunday after a truck carrying a flammable liquid, later said to be gasoline, caught fire on a ramp underneath it. The road is the main north-south interstate on the east coast. Smoke billowed from the rubble. The northbound lanes were destroyed and the southbound lanes compromised by heat from the fire.
Preliminary reports indicate that a commercial truck carrying a petroleum-based product was the source of the fire. We're still working to identify any individual or individuals who may have been caught in the fire and the collapse.
Shapiro added that a complete rebuild of I-95 would take months to do, and in the meantime, officials were looking at interim solutions. Motorists were sent on a 43-mile detour following the accident. This segment of highway carries roughly 160,000 vehicles a day. Work would continue through the night to remove the collapsed section as quickly as possible. The section was part of a reconstruction project finished only 4 years ago. Officials are also concerned about runoff into the nearby Delaware River after a sheen was spotted on the surface. The National Transportation Safety Board will investigate the fire and collapse. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was arrested and questioned for several hours by police investigating the finances of the governing Scottish National Party. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Police Scotland said a 52-year-old woman was detained on Sunday morning as a suspect in connection with the ongoing investigation into the funding and finances of the Scottish National Party. The force said she was released without charge pending further investigation about 6 hours later. British police do not identify suspects until they are charged. After her release, Sturgeon said her arrest had been both a shock and deeply distressing. In a statement on social media, Sturgeon said she knew beyond doubt she is innocent of any wrongdoing. The SNP said it is not appropriate to publicly address any issues while the investigation is ongoing. Scottish police opened an investigation in 2021 into how more than £600,000 designated for a Scottish independence campaign was spent. Two former SNP officials, Colin Beattie, who was treasurer, and Peter Murrell, who was chief executive, were previously arrested and questioned as part of the investigation. Like Sturgeon, both were released pending further inquiries. Murrell is Sturgeon's husband, and police searched the couple's home in Glasgow after his arrest in April. The first female leader of Scotland's devolved government, Sturgeon led her party to dominance in Scottish politics. She guided her party during 3 UK general elections and 2 Scottish elections and led Scotland through the coronavirus pandemic. Still, Sturgeon unexpectedly resigned in February after 8 years as First Minister, having failed to achieve her and her party's main goal of securing Scotland's independence. Scottish voters backed remaining in the UK in a 2014 referendum. The party wants a new vote, but Britain's Supreme Court has ruled that Scotland can't hold one without Westminster's consent. The central government has refused to authorise another referendum. Daniel Rowell, TVB News.
Back locally, the Town Planning Board organised public hearings regarding the construction of public housing at the Fanling Golf Course. Some former officials believe the city will face a housing shortage if authorities abandon their current plan. This as organisers of international golfing events announced they will cease hosting competitions in Hong Kong if SAR officials proceed with their proposal. Timothy Lee tells us more.
With 32 hectares of the Fanling Golf Course set to be returned to the government this September, authorities will continue with their plan to use 9 hectares of the land to build 12,000 public housing units. But the planning department earlier proposed to the Town Planning Board to temporarily rezone the suggested public housing site from residential to undetermined. That's in view of the conditions attached to the approval of the Environmental Impact Assessment report last month. The authorities have to review the layout design and the density of the public housing development. Meanwhile, the Town Planning Board will organize 5 public hearings related to the land development plan at the golf course. In the first hearing this morning, a majority of attendees rejected the public housing plan, including representatives of the Hong Kong Golf Club. Club captain of the Hong Kong Golf Club, Andy Kwok, stressed that the building of the housing units will essentially destroy Asia's oldest golf course, which dates back to more than 100 years ago. He added that the Fanling Golf Course is the only golf course in the city capable of hosting international golfing events. Meanwhile, Saudi Aramco's Live Golf League, which views the Fanling Golf Course as one of its selected locations for its upcoming tournament, said it would not play in the city if major changes were made on the green.
Live Golf could not consider any other venues in Hong Kong due to the sheer scale of the build for those events, and the infrastructure required is approximately 5 times that of a normal event.
However, former Director of Planning Ling Kar Khan noted that grassroots residents in the city are desperate for the 12,000 units. He said if the government were to abandon the housing plan, it would severely derail the public housing system. Representatives of the Society for Community Organization also gathered outside the public hearing venue and urged the Town Planning Board to allow the housing proposal to proceed, citing that more than 220,000 residents are facing challenges with housing. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
4 Hong Kong stores of mainland electric car maker BYD were splashed with red paint and had their roller doors rammed on Monday. This is a showroom in Tsim Sha Tsui. Some windows were daubed with red paint, and at around 4 a.m., police received a report saying the showroom was vandalized. The BYD showroom in Yuen Long was also vandalized at around the same time, with its doors being rammed by a car. Between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., police received 2 more reports saying the car maker's Wan Chai showroom and Tin Shui Wai Service Center were also daubed with red paint. Police have classified the cases as criminal damage. Meanwhile, a Chinese University of Hong Kong medical research team said it has discovered a new form of therapy to treat lung cancer. The treatment uses gene editing technology to enhance the anti-cancer capacity of neutrophils, immune cells that are the most abundant in human blood. Memo Sangai with more.
In Hong Kong, lung cancer kills around 4,000 people a year, more than any other form of cancer. Currently, there are multiple ways of treating the disease, including checkpoint inhibitors, a type of immunotherapy, While such a treatment is common, it can only benefit 30% of lung cancer patients. Nonetheless, the CUHK medical research team has discovered a new generation of immunotherapy using neutrophils, white blood cells found in human blood that defend the body against microorganisms and viruses. The team discovered an immunoregulatory molecule SMAD3 within the cells that suppress the anti-cancer capacity of neutrophils. Researchers then applied genetic editing technology to remove SMAD3, with results showing that lung cancer growth can be prevented. While the team has already conducted trials on mice, experts said they face different challenges before the treatment can be practiced on humans.
Now, I think the challenge is really to try to translate this into clinical practice. I think to begin with, it is very important for us to make sure that this type of therapy is safe for humans. And we need to ensure that the process, both the manufacturing process as well as the clinical trial process, is up to international standards. I think secondly is we need to find the right treatment strategy. Should we be targeting early stage disease or should we be targeting late stage disease? Hopefully, if everything is smooth, in science nothing is ever really smooth, but if it is smooth, then maybe we're talking about 5 to 8 years where we can hopefully be able to see this into clinical practice.
The research team said they don't expect the new discovery will replace other current anti-cancer therapies. Rather, they hope to provide an effective treatment option for patients. Mimosa 9, TVB News.
The previously deflated giant rubber duck has been brought back to life and greeted the public again at the Central Harbourfront. That's after a 2-day break for checks and repairs. All pumped up, the 18-meter yellow duck reunited with its buddy, much to the delight of locals and tourists alike. The duck was deflated on Saturday by its organizer, which found parts of its surface had tightened up under Hong Kong's sweltering weather. The studio behind the Double Ducks exhibition said the unsettled weather is expected to linger for the next few days, and they have come up with contingency plans in case of any accidents. In tandem with the floating exhibits, the yellow ducks are also taking flight in the air. Apart from adorning cable cars on Lantau Island, some yellow duck-themed installations also took over Ngong Ping Village on Lantau Island. A Hong Kong student was allegedly assaulted by his roommate at a UK boarding school. Blundell School in Tiverton was where the alleged assault happened. According to British media outlets, a 16-year-old boy used a hammer to attack a teacher and 2 students. A Hong Kong student was among the injured. The suspect is now charged with suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm with intent. An educational consultant believes the incident is exceptional, saying Britain can protect the safety of Hong Kong students.
Yeah, I've spoken to parents currently at the school, and they're unhappy. They're unsettled, but I wouldn't say they're nervous. They're of the opinion that this is a one-off case. It's not something that happens regularly, and that there shouldn't be anything for them to be worried about.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.